Hi, Intuitive viewers, welcome. I am so excited today because we have back with us from our last video we did together, Felice. Felice, hi.
Oh, hi, Kim. It's so fantastic to be here with you.
I'm so
Thank
glad you're
you.
here. So we had a conversation before with Felice where we talked about her NDE. She had a near-death experience that kind of changed everything in her life. And so that video is still there. You can go back and watch that whole video about her experience, which is amazing in itself. And we'd been talking about her coming back and talking about this idea of living big. It was one of the messages that she received during her near-death experience. So Felice, for those people who didn't see that, can you just explain when you received that particular message? Where was it in your NDE that you heard that message or got that message from spirit?
So when I was out of my body, it was before I was coming back. Like I knew at that point, I knew that I was coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And there was the message from this being, guide, angel guide, being, spirit that was there. That was a presence other than my own, that was also connecting and communicating with that higher part of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And what I heard loud and clear, not with the sense of hearing as we relate to hearing, but what I heard and I knew was, it's time to live big. So coming back, knowing that when I came back, it was time to live big, to stop playing small, to well, I'll expand upon it about the meaning as I understood it to be when I was back in my body, and what it meant to me in that moment. Because I knew in that moment why the message was there, and why it was meant for me, and also to bring back with me to share.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and how do you now, having had the experience and moved kind of past the experience, how do you think you were not living big before? How were you living small before this experience?
So there was a knowing inside before all of this happened. I wasn't really listening to myself. Like I knew I wanted to be doing certain things and I wasn't actualizing them. I wasn't taking action on them. I knew I had some things to offer that were different than what I was offering. I knew that I could expand what I was doing as a Montessori teacher, guide, and in consulting, and there was more there. Mm-hmm. And I also knew that the experiences that had led me up to the accident, all the experiences of resiliency boot camp, as I referred to in the last video, of
right
when the crap hit the fan over and over and over again. I knew that if I could use those experiences to help other people in some way, and I wasn't doing that either. So I wasn't listening to that inner nudge and that inner voice, and that I was playing small. And yeah, so.
And I think that's so common. And I think that, for me, when I hear living big, I think for someone like me, who's a little bit, I would consider even though I have a YouTube channel, I would consider myself kind of still more of an introvert. And I think, so I think that some of that, and maybe you can speak to this as well from your own experience, that part of the hesitation to like live big is maybe you'll fail.
Yep.
And also just the, like, how I don't know how to put myself out there and still feel comfortable being me, because for someone like me, it's not really comfortable to just put myself out on a limb in some way, to take big risk. I'm still, like I said, even though I do this and whatever, I still don't think of myself as a big risk taker. And I feel like there is, when you decide to do something where you're living big, there is an element of getting out of your comfort zone that you do have to kind of grapple with. So can you speak to that a little bit, and
Yes.
also what that meant for you? How difficult was that to kind of put things out there in a,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, so what I knew, and just to backtrack a little bit and get in
Yeah.
the flow of this, is that I was playing small in not using, we all have gifts and talents and inclinations and intuition, and I was not listening to that, to the knowing. Like I knew that I knew what I knew, but I was pretending to know it because it was scary. It was, I don't know how. And then all the old story tapes on, I don't know how, I'm not capable, I'm not good at that. All those things would come into play, and it was easier to stay comfortable in what I was doing.
Right.
And it's important to note that living big doesn't necessarily mean living large and being out there
Right.
and being at the forefront and being visible. It could mean whatever it means for you. It is. It's so I just came back from this run in the rain. I committed to doing 100 miles of running or walking or biking for the month of May. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah, and I'm doing it. What propelled this was also in honor of a friend who just passed, and this group, and to get out of my comfort zone and to practice. So for me, in that moment of making myself get out in the rain, when it would have been so, it's the Northeast, it's rainy, it's cold, I could have been very comfortable and cozy in my house, and something
Right.
just made me do it. And I got out. Like in that moment, that's living big. So whatever it is for you, when you're showing up for yourself and for others in your maximum potential, and in giving something all that you've got, that's living big. It doesn't have to be some it's like those moments where you show up living big that add up. It could be starting a YouTube channel. That's living big. That's like scary and showing up with all you've got. Right. So it could mean different things to different people. It has to do with that risk taking. It has to do with feeling like you're being your potential. And that could be a scary thing. And there's a lot of fear that comes up. And so much of the time I was contemplating this, so much of the time we're living big in our minds. Like we have these visions and these goals, and it's relegated to our minds and our heads, right? And then we don't take action on them for various reasons. Maybe it's some kind of subconscious beliefs we have about ourselves, or things that we've been told, or it's out of the norm for the trajectory that we've been on, or the messaging that we've received. So how do we kind of break free of that, right? So that we can show up and not, I could have been killed in an instant, really, when I was hit by that truck. And it is true that we never know what's going to happen in any moment. And fear is so much controlled by our thoughts and our thinking. It's like shifting a mindset is really important. And the awareness of, not without self-admonishment or blame or self-judgment, like, I notice I want to do this, but I'm having this limiting thought, so I'm shrinking.
Right.
The awareness is the first step. And then comes I'm going to make a choice to make a different choice. And it's in small steps. Does that make sense?
Right. It does, because I think that sometimes people think that, so for example, if I have a desire to, I've always had the desire to learn to draw. So if I think sometimes, or be an artist, if somebody wants to be an artist, I think sometimes they think that it means I have to quit my job and become an artist, right? That, that there's some kind of big, but it really isn't. It can be in small increments. And it is, I think, that also to bring in the idea of kind of that spirituality, because this came to you as a spiritual message. And so, and I do think that, we're all here for different reasons. We all came for different reasons. And I always think of it as, if you were going to an amusement park and you really wanted to ride a roller coaster, and you want to get on, and you don't, and then the next day thinking about, why didn't I just get on the roller coaster?
Right.
Why didn't I do it? I feel like that's what we'll feel if we don't do the things we want to do here. We don't do the things we want to experience here. When we pass, we'll be fine. We'll have passed and everything will be fine, but we'll look back and think, why didn't I just do it? Why didn't I just do it? Why didn't I just do it? So getting past that fear of failure, and getting past that, could I take it if I fail? Those kind of limiting, like you said, limiting thoughts. But it doesn't have to start out with something huge. You don't have to jump out with both feet. You can kind of dip a toe in and start that way. Right.
You're absolutely what was coming to me, and what has been coming to me, is there's so many ways we feel constricted by our thoughts, by those shoulda, woulda, couldas, didn't, or by like the self-sabotaging, right? If we can release some of that constriction, then there's more space to take risks and to show up in a different way and to make different choices. And what really, for me in that moment, living big was directly related to my intuition, because I was making choices based on safety, based on, we as human beings, we're wired to want to be loved, to share love, to not want to feel abandoned or rejected or judged or all of that. So when there's a threat of that, we play safe rather than take a risk, because we're wired to be okay. Right. And the thing is that we could go through life playing by those rules and having something inside of us that we know we're not accessing, and go through every day just playing comfortable. Or we can surround ourselves and look to the people who are doing small things in their lives to move forward, to create a different future. Like I heard someone say in a podcast today, what choices are you making on the daily to control your reality, to create the reality that you want to be living? And it could be small choices. And, a lot of times in my healing work, I guide people to, and my mindset work is to guide people to hallelujah moments. Like how today did you show up? And rather than saying, oh, I didn't do this, oh, I know I'm capable of this, like what hallelujah moment did you have today? Maybe it's that you followed through on something you said you were going to do. Maybe it's whatever shift it is that you make. High five yourself, and that feeling will generate doing more of those things. So it's starting small to live into that bigness. And for me at the time, which is interesting, is when I came back and I was so connected and still like in these worlds of what is, I was not really landed and grounded on my feet. I was still half in that experience, even though my body was going through, there's also trauma in the body and somatic experiencing and all of that to be embodied, but really on a spiritual level, like, woo, out. Right. And there was a voice inside of me that that was connected to the guidance I was hearing outside. Like it was all connected, and still I wasn't listening. And for example, that voice said to me, that voice was guiding me to do something with the experience that I had, and not get in a relationship, and not get in a relationship, and not get in a relationship, until I did the things that I couldn't not do coming back. And what did I do? Got in a relationship, even though so it's like, even if you know these truths, it's a practice to come back. And the thing about these times now is, in this last year of COVID, in the collective, there seems to have really been a shift, because we've come face to face with our own mortality.
Right.
This shift for people feeling more of a sense of urgency to get their big stuff done, to get their scary stuff done, because, you know, it was so real and all around us, this sense of like, oh, the time is right now. It's not right. So practices that could bring us into the now moment, where we're not living in the past, or living in the traumas, or living in the woulda, shoulda, coulda, but right now, like, if you look at the future self, if you were living big, whatever that means to you, right? And you look at yourself and you imagine yourself, what would life be like if you were living big and you were fully self-expressed and not afraid and shining your light and being all of who you are and sharing your gifts with either one person or thousands of people? Like, what would life look like? And then making choices in this now moment that align with your future self. That's how we bring that future into the now and live big in little incremental ways of living big. I mean, it encompasses both, right?
Right.
To show up fully.
Right.
And it's a practice. I mean, it's one thing to know it intellectually.
Right.
And it's another thing to action it and to be it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And I, when you talk about, because you're right, the last year of COVID, that's why I wanted to do this, because I get a couple of types of emails. I get emails that are saying, I, went through this experience of COVID, had these very transformative experiences, facing my own mortality and thinking, okay, I know I'm supposed to do something. I need to do something now. So I have that set. And then I also have people who are like, I have had so much change in the last year. I've lost my job. I've lost I've lost family members, and I cannot take one more change. I can't take anything else. And they're just trying to kind of rebuild and get back. So how do you take an experience like that, where you're kind of on the edge of like, I've lost so much, and yet for me, that's when I was actually able to kind of take a leap, because it's almost like, in a way, I knew I couldn't go back. I'd had all these experiences. And I think that is your human, like you said, you want that safety and you want that okayness. So your instinct, I think, is to try to go back to what happened before. But when you have all these experiences, you're changed, you're different. So there really isn't any point of trying to go back, because it's going to be, you kind of had that experience, right? Where
I did.
You came out of the experience, tried to kind of rebuild your life going backwards, and it really didn't work.
Well, what happened for me leading up to the accident, and for anyone, I'm sorry if this is repetitive for anyone who watched our last
No,
interview,
it's okay.
is that, leading up to getting hit by a truck, I was crossing the road, I got hit by a truck. I'm just reiterating that in case for people who are tuning in. And what led up to that was, in a very short period of time, my normal had completely fallen apart. My identity, I became an empty nester. My partner had an affair. My house had a fire. I got robbed. All my jewelry was stolen. I had surgery on my knee. I was on crutches. I took a leave of absence from work. Then my house had a flood. I mean, it was like boom, boom, boom. And it was major identity reboot.
Right.
And,
right.
and then with the accident, then I was hit, right? And what I learned through all of that and adjusting to a new normal is that, and I learned this through having a mild traumatic brain injury, is that the new normal was always shifting. It wasn't like, oh, there's going to be a new normal that I'm going to go to. It's like, no,
Right.
actually today is this. And oh, now today is this. It was always shifting. And what I learned to really rely on and lean into, and I encourage everyone to have some kind of practice, a meditation practice. There are so many apps, guided meditation, walks in the woods, where you turn off your brain and get really still and connected with the thing that never changes and is always consistent, which is this deeper connection with something greater than ourselves that also lives within us. It's that eternal part of us.
Right.
That as a foundation, when that is strengthened, we're able to move through the changes with greater ease. And it's human nature to wait till a change occurs before we do that, right?
Right. Right.
You could build that resiliency and that connection inside. That's going to help be able to weather the storms with a little bit more groundedness, a little bit more connection, a little bit more feeling normalized, because you always have that connection with the divine within you.
Right.
And the other thing in the adjustment to the new normal is, I remember a doctor saying to me, you're going to be back to you're going to be 100%. You're going to have a new normal. You're going to be 100%. And I like to say and instead of but. I think the doctor probably said but he said, I remember this so clearly. You're going to get to a normal and you're going to be 100%, but your 100% is going to look different and your normal is going to look different. And at the time, I'm like, what does that even mean?
Right.
Right. And as we adjust, and what's important is to be open, to be curious, to use things, whether you believe things happen to you or things happen for us, whatever people's belief is about that, we have a choice to take what happens and say, what can I use this for? Because like it or not, it's things happen in our life and we learn and we grow, and we might not know in the middle of it why we're learning and growing.
Right.
The way we can bring consistency and adapt to some sense of normal. There's never a going back, right? Because we're always learning and growing and evolving, is again, leaning into that consistency of A, what can I control? B, how is this for me? C, gratitude for what is. And I don't mean bypassing, because it's easy to spiritually bypass and say, oh, I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for that. And you can be in the both and, like, yes, I'm grateful and this kind of sucks. Like,
right.
you can, right? You can be in the both and of things. And watching your thoughts, like really creating the mindset, because mindset is huge. And it's what helps us gain momentum to feel steady, to be in a forward moving. And I don't mean forward like active. When people say, I don't want to be in momentum, I just want things to be settled down.
Right.
Mindset is huge. So making a choice to make a different choice, to think differently, and and that awareness. And then the other thing is really tapping in to that connection inside, is so important.
Well, right. And you're right. That is the consistent thing, right? Because we live in a world that it never does stay the same. It's always changing. That's the nature of it. You know, it's always changing. It's always going to be different. Yep. It's always moving. There's always movement. Nothing is permanent, you know, so, but that eternal part of us that is the, when we think of grounding, that's what I think of. It's kind of getting a hold of that part of you and being able to kind of go into that and be able to seek that and find that when you need it. It never changes. It's always there.
This whole idea, you know, that what stays the same is our connection. And also the body, like allowing yourself to feel what you feel so it could move out of your body is really important, because that creates space so that you can show up big. If we're constricted and all stuck and all in our heads, or our bodies are tense and energy can't flow out, energy also can't flow in. So it's really important. And, you know, I think with this whole living big is everyone's so focused on what's my purpose? What's my purpose? What's my purpose? Right. And allowing ourselves to feel purposeful in our everyday interactions is really important. If you're having a sense of wanting to serve in a bigger way, there's lots of questions you can ask yourself, right? What are your passions? What do you have to offer? What are your experiences? What was your mess that is now your message? There's all sorts of tools online and teachers that guide you to that. And really my understanding is from my experiences, we are all individual expressions of the same source. And our greater purpose is shared, which is to grow and learn and evolve our souls through experiences and to be here to have a human experience. I mean, a soul, when you're out, there's no emotions or egos. And in our human forms, we experience joy, we experience love, we experience sorrow. We have all these different experiences. And then individually, we have our soul's lessons that we came here to learn, which is in connection with our purposeful incarnation, mission, dharma, you know, that's connected. And I think that's a big one when people are looking at living big, right? Like, oh, I'm not living big, living my purpose. Like, how could you live big today? What would that look like? What would it look like? Living big is being true to yourself and listening to your own inner guidance and your own intuition. And that involves taking risks sometimes. That involves being uncomfortable. That involves shifting your thoughts. That involves looking at the ways in which we're afraid that we're going to be judged or not accepted or ridiculed, or we have old stories playing in our heads, you know, like really sorting through that stuff that keeps us from shining that light that we know is inside, yet that we dim.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I was, you know, thinking as well that when I think, you know, when, like you said, mindset's a big thing. So what people think, well, I want to be a musician or an artist, and it seems too big. So how it seems like, well, what is that? I don't even know where do I start? Where do I start? But it is kind of the idea of doing something in the moment, doing something every day, because that when you just take that teensy tiny little step, it leads to the next step. It leads to the next step. And that's how it works. It's not like you just make a splash and you're all of a sudden, you're a musician. It's these little tiny little things. So if I'm depressed and I'm in bed and I want to be a musician, the first step would not be, you know, get an agent. The first step would be get out of bed and listen to your favorite song or get out of bed and, you know, start, you know, listening to music again or start singing again just in your shower, right? I mean, that's kind of in little
Absolutely.
increments.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely, when I was, it's kind of like a person who loses 100 pounds. They don't lose 100 pounds overnight. It's 1 pound at a time. And, you know, just to relate a personal story. And again, it's not about me. It's just sharing the experiences in whatever way it's helpful for someone, is that I was 49 when I was hit by this truck, and I had built this career. I was speaking at conferences. I was leading workshops. I was certifying Montessori teacher. Like I was building this career over 25 years. It was more than 25 years, somewhere between 25, 30 years. And I was ready to reach more people and use my gifts to help more people so they could help more kids. And then when I got hit and I couldn't go back to work, it felt like starting over again in a place, but I had already done that. You know, I wanted to come in at a level, but no, I'm ready to have a big impact. I'm ready to meet more people. I don't want to have to start over. Right. And I think that mindset, and I allowed that to get to me. You know, I that was my excuse. That was my story for not taking an action.
Right.
And until I think we get sick and tired of being sick and tired, and then we do something.
Right.
And right now, again, you know, with our own mortality, with us facing this in new ways, like the time is now, right? There's it's never not now. And really, where do you want to be in 5? And I like to work backwards, right? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 1 year? Where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in 3 months? And it's taking those small steps, because that, you know, that for me, and I think for a lot of people that I speak to, feels more doable to say, okay, you know, well, I want to learn, like, how do you break it down? Well, I want to learn to play the guitar, right? Like, okay, I want to be a folk singer.
Right.
I want to play the guitar. Okay, well, what does that include? Like, we have to be realistic too, right? Because our minds will run away. Okay, so what are the bite-sized baby steps? And I think that's where the hallelujah moments come in. Like, what's that bite-sized baby step you can do and follow through and take action on?
Right.
You know, and if you can find an accountability group, it's just all these little things add up to us living big.
Right.
And you get to make it mean. And again, it doesn't mean living big and, you know, I mean, sure, I would like my story to have, not because of me, but the information that has come through and from, to have massive impact on people, so that people in service, so that people could feel happier, so there's less suffering in the world. So it's all for something. And it has to start with one person at a time, right? It's like you have this YouTube channel, right? And you have like 14,000, almost 14,000 followers. That didn't happen overnight, right? So it's the same kind of thing. It's like, you're really showing up big in the world with your gifts, and everyone has gifts to share. And if those aren't being seen and acknowledged, I feel like a lot of people are in situations where maybe their natural tendencies or inclinations, or that light that they know is there, isn't recognized by the people around them. How can you have the support? Where can you go for the support? What communities can you tap into? Maybe it's this community watching this YouTube video, or your YouTube channel, and checking in with people. There's a lot of online groups now, or, you know, where can you go where you are seen and recognized and supported for the gifts? Because I feel like that encouragement is huge for people. right? We all want to be seen and recognized and acknowledged and loved for exactly who we are and where we're at on the journey, and encouraged to drop all the stuff so that we can show up big.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's a great message. And I think, so if you could walk through, if you were able to give people, okay, start here. So you said, kind of, which I think is a great place to start, is start with in getting connected in here. And that will also tell you, like, what is it I really want? What do I really want? Maybe I don't want to be a superstar. Maybe I want to just be able to, sing and perform for myself and my family, a family function. You know what I mean? It will help you kind of get in touch with what is it that I do want. Maybe when I was a teenager, I wanted this, but now what is it? What is it that would make me feel like I'm sharing what I have to offer? Whatever that is, so is that where you tell people to start, is kind of look within first?
Yes, because again, my message came because I was not listening to my intuition.
Right.
That message came, and the message was to share with people that in order to live big, you have to be tuned in to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say hear, I mean that place inside of you that is aware of, maybe you have some deep yearning to do something and you're hiding it, or you're saying, oh, well, it's good enough, but yet that yearning is not going to go away. Right. And tuning into that place, shutting off the mind, because there's so much messaging, and whether it's from our families or our culture or our societies or all of the epigenetics, like inherited beliefs from our family structures and systems that inform what we do, how we show up in the world. It's getting in touch with here and who you be, not who you do, what you do.
Right.
Because so much of that tells you what to do, but who are you on the inside? What are you drawn to do? What impact do you want to have in the world? What impact do you want to have for your family? How do you want your relationships to feel? And when we can get quiet and turn off all the noise, we can hear what's true for us, not what's true for the people around us or our families, or what magazines or Instagram or society, like what feels true for you.
Right.
And really the only way to get there is to shut off the noise.
Right.
And it takes some time, it takes some time to shut off the noise. And then it's a practice to listen, because we can hear our intuition, yet we can hear what it's telling us to do or not to do, and do the opposite thing. It takes awareness, right? It takes awareness first. So absolutely meditation practice, and getting still. And getting still can be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It could be really uncomfortable, and expecting that it's going to be uncomfortable, right? I mean, yeah. What is it? A lotus flower grows in the mud.
Right.
So we're in the mud before we grow into this beauty and kind of crack open into the beauty. It's like the sea. I mean, there's so many analogies, right? It's like the seed that's down deep, dark in the earth, that then has to push its way up into the light. I mean, there's all these analogies in nature. Mm-hmm. That's another thing. If you could get out into the natural world and regulate your rhythm and the way you listen and tune into yourself, and if you're going to do the thinking, you can think clearly in nature.
Right.
It's just, there's so much noise and there's so much information coming at us in the news and the just being able to turn it all off and recalibrate with ourselves. And it's not like, you're going to sit and have it all figured out in a minute. It takes practice. It's a practice.
Absolutely. And we're very, especially in the United States, I feel like we're constantly bombarded with messages, with messaging, and messages that are supposed to affect us, emotionally, so that we'll go out and buy this or think we need this.
Yep.
And it really, I think that is a perfect place for people to start. And then do you think just thinking of one small thing, once you figure that out, okay, I know that I really like to try doing X. Now taking one little tiny step
Yep.
towards that. And then I also think there's something to be said too about being flexible, because
Mm-hmm.
once you take one little step, you may have an expectation that something will happen or something's, but if you kind of stay flexible and kind of open to what may be, to not being having to be in control of it, of what's happening all the time, to kind of trust a little bit in the universe, kind of guiding you and showing you, so if you're thinking, okay, well, the first thing I'll do is go out and um, you know get in a class, start a class. Well, I went to the class and nothing happened, or I didn't feel like it was great, but maybe you'll meet someone at the class. Maybe if
Right.
you're open to it, if you're so, if you can only if you're tunnel visioned, you can only see one way this can happen. You're closing off a million other ways that you can get to where you want to get to, or get to your goal. So I always think, just be open, be flexible with once you start. Right.
Adaptability is
Yeah.
huge. Adaptability, and like this 100-mile run, my hip, because I had fractured my hip, and sometimes it acts up,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really bothering me. And it wasn't, I was like, okay, is this mindset? Like, just push through it. Or my body was like screaming at me, like, okay, stop. So adapt, walk a
Right.
little bit, get on the bike, do something. You have to be flexible and adapt. Yes, have
Right.
your goals and be adaptable. And also this gets into a whole nother conversation about visualization and the how. And just
Mm-hmm.
to go off on that tangent,
Mm-hmm.
if you can envision something, like really visualize it, taste it, smell it, see it in your mind's eye, how will it feel to have that? If you can do that and let go of the how it happens, yet take one little step towards it a day, or take big,
Mm-hmm.
massive action or small action, whatever it is, and be open to the how, right? Like you said, not closed off blinders, but we also, it's not like someone's going to knock on your door and give you the thing that you're wanting. If you
Exactly.
want to be a musician or whatever, learn guitar, no one's knocking your door. You have to take the steps, and it
Right.
could just, yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
living big. It's time,
It's
everyone.
time.
The time is now.
Wake
And
up.
yeah, well, we just saw that again in this whole
Right.
last year. It's not like, oh, I'll do it when, because that's the procrastination, the excuse. And that is the mind. That's the ego who wants to play it safe, who's trying to protect us from failure
Right.
and all of that. It's like better to have put it forth. I mean, what does failure mean anyway?
Right.
You
Right.
know, it's so important when we leave our bodies, this breathing form, and we are not here on the earth anymore. I think everyone wants to be able to leave knowing that they really were self-expressed. We really gave ourselves to all that we wanted to do. And I'm not going to say the word try, because I think that can limit us sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, you could try something, but that can get tricky and dicey. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
even going to open up that can, but, and we don't want to have that that yearning inside of us and never have gone for it.
Right.
Right. And whether it's we're old and it's natural causes, or whether it's boom. And that's the other thing. You do not need to have a near-death experience or get hit by a truck or have some massive catastrophic event happen in order to jolt you into this reality, and to jolt you into taking action. Like, take action now. That's not necessary.
Right.
And I think that's if that's one thing, if sharing this information can help someone else in living big in a way that resonates for them, without having to go through trauma, that would be it.
Right.
And we grow from all the things that happen in our life, right? And what would happen if we took action from a place of feeling empowered to take action rather than from a place of having
Right.
because now you're in the mud, right?
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I love this. I love this conversation. Thank you, Felice, for coming back and talking about this. I think it's so important. I think everybody has felt a little thrown out of the nest this year, I think,
Absolutely.
in big ways. And so I think this is a great, hopefully, beginning for people to start thinking about this stuff and just taking even just that little tiny first step to get going. Right.
And the one other thing is, it's never too late. I also have this thing in our that where our culture and society, or our culture, has a thing about getting older. Like, I mean, me as a 55-year-old woman, it's like, oh, like once you reach menopause or once your kids, it's like life's over. Like, no way. We get to make it mean whatever we want it to mean. If you want to go back to school and you're 70 or 80, go for it. If you want to start a business and you're 60, or go for it, whatever it is. Who's making up the rules? We get to make up the rules and what it means and what we want it to mean, in all areas, whether it's health and fitness, whether it's mindset, whether it's with our relationships. I mean, we get to make up what it means to be however old we are. So it's never too late. It's never too late. It really isn't.
I so agree with that. And I think that, especially for women, I think in their late 40s, 50s, 60s, I feel like as a woman, depending on what you've done, if you've had a family, your kids are growing and leaving, if you've had a career, you're retiring. So you're having a lot of things kind of taken away from you, things that you kind of got comfortable with and relied on. They're kind of being stripped away, and you are kind of left with yourself thinking, okay, now what was it I wanted to do before all this other, when you have those layers stripped away, sometimes it's easier to kind of to do it at that point. So sometimes when it later in life that you actually feel like, okay, now I can do what I want to do. Now I can kind of dig in and do what I wanted to do way back when, before I had kids, before I had a family and a career and everything. It's a great time to do that. And it's also a way to deal with that stuff, because when you have things stripped away like that, it can feel like you're losing yourself, but really you're not. You can really come into yourself when those things are kind of stripped away. You're left with you, and then you can figure it out.
It's, I've been forming a group to look at that. It's the identity reboot, like your inner identity, not the identity of of the roles you play as a mom or as a single woman or as a wife or as a whatever it is, or what you do. It's who are you on the inside in your being, your human beingness, not your human doingness. Who are you? Identity reboot, because it's I find either a lot of my daughter's friends really drawn to the work that I'm doing, and they're in their 20s. I have two daughters, but one of them in particular, they're in their 20s, and their friends, there's so much external stimulation and so much of identity wrapped with that they're like, all right, I want to be in touch with this. So there's
Right.
that.
Right.
And then there's older people that are in that the kids have gone, I'm in a new transition with work. I don't want to be doing what I'm doing anymore. Or maybe I'm retiring, or my body has changed, like all of, or then there's that is like, all right, who am I without the external roles that I play? Right. Like what I bring to that is part of who I am. Yet who am I really when I'm quiet with myself? So it's really interesting to have those two, it's been fascinating and interesting what comes up, you know, and that new normal, right? We're always adjusting. Everyone's, just to put this out there. Yes, COVID was huge and it sparked so many things on so many levels, whether it's career, whether it's cultural, whether it's diversity and inclusion and systemic racism, all of the things that it sparked to take a look at, to adjust to a new normal. Individually, people are always going through a new normal, whether it's you're putting your child on the kindergarten bus for the first time, that's a new normal that you're adjusting to. Whether it's you're getting married, that's a new normal. You're getting divorced, that's a new normal. You start a new job, you leave a job. We are always adjusting to new normals. And to remember, you've done it before. You can do it. You can do it. You have done it. It might have looked different and it might have been at a different scale and seem different. And the thing that is different here is that people are experiencing it collectively. So everyone's kind of like in the same boat, but in different boats within that. And I got to say that when COVID happened and the world slowed down, I have to tell you that I wasn't happy about COVID.
Right.
But the thing that I was kind of in the zone about was, oh, okay. It felt, I had a moment of feeling like everyone, like living with a traumatic brain injury. I had a moment of feeling like, okay, like everyone's like now slowed down. It feels really like, okay, I can do this. I felt not normal or typical, but it was really nice to be in that zone of knowing how to do that before beat it up. So, for whatever that's
and I think we needed it. I don't think it was sustainable. I don't think the road we were on was sustainable. People working 2 and 3 jobs and trying to keep up with everything. And for, you know, it was all too much. I think it needed to, I think on some level, on different levels for different people, it needed to happen. It was not sustainable, the road we were on. It was too much, I think, for people. And I think now everybody's kind of reassessed. You know, they're kind of thrown out, like I said, thrown out of the nest a little bit, but you take this opportunity. That's what, you know, take this opportunity to do what you wanted to do, change what you wanted to change. Like you said, don't wait for a bus to hit you. Don't wait for a truck to hit you. Do it. The
time is now. The time is now. Really.
Yeah. You're waiting for permission. You have permission.
You have permission. Absolutely. Go for it. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you, Felice, so much. And where can people find you if they want to find you for classes, for readings, for where can they find you?
www.groundedillumination.com is where I'm at. And there are new programs forming. I also do some parent work. Oh, good. Yeah. And that's yourtoddlercoach.com, but I'm really focused. Okay. Yourtoddlercoach.com.
Your toddler coach. Okay. Really, yeah. I put that down wrong. Yeah. So I'll put both things below so they can find you and reach out to you. And yeah.
Excellent.
Great.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Felice.
Focused. Oh, you're so welcome.
Thank you.
And one more thing, my living big is really, you know, it's scary to put yourself out there, right?
Yeah, it is.
Is really like, what are people going to think? She's channeling. Oh, she's a little kooky. Da, da, da.
Yeah.
But you know what? It is what it is. Like there's no more. And I was hiding that and not sharing that.
Right.
And so that's really where my energy is going. One more thing I want to leave everyone with is
Yeah.
to think of how much energy and how much living big your mind does, and your thoughts and your brain.
Right.
Like think of how, like that part of you is living big and
Right.
taking up so much space. Like how can we be discerning with what we're giving our energy to, being efficient with that, and direct it towards that which we want to show up and give and share
Right.
with the world. So
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. You know, if we put half the attention and energy that we do into our thoughts, into what we can actually do, we'd be living in a different world. Let's face it.
Yeah.
We really would be.
Exactly.
Well, thank you, Felice, so much. I really appreciate you coming back on and talking about this, and I'm sure we'll talk again. I'm sure we will. All right.
Thank you,
Viewers,
Kim.
thank you guys. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.